Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Let's start with our daily market commentary. Now, what we see on Nifty is basically the weekly chart. One thing where we have already marked our prior resistance. So Nifty seems to be catching on those levels as we see so. So weekly format, it's pretty much clear 10,800 or 10,750 kind of levels where the gap down had happened prior. It's basically in that particular zone. So it's trying to fill the gap. Now important is whether it can sustain above this gap or not, right? So that is what we will try to address today. More than that, one thing that we need to understand, when a top kind of selling happens, right from the top to the bottom around 10%, we saw a straight pullback happening, and which was very fast, right? Now, obviously, this was the point where all the shorts get trapped and then they start either to reverse their positions or they might even roll over the position, right? So we'll do some analysis on rollover as well to understand what happened at the expiry. Now, one thing is clear right from the base, what we are trying to see, it's been climbing up and up, and there is no respite for any kind of downside. Now, almost today, if you see, all the big heavyweights results are out, okay, except for L&T, everyone is out. So now we will try to see whether these result-based rally has been done or not. Now, one thing what I saw from the weekly chart, I am pretty much sure this becomes a huge resistance now, or today's opening was also a kind of resistance for Nifty. If we go down in the daily format, okay, and try to see what's happening on the daily front, it's pretty much the same, right? At the point where the gap down opening happened, it's almost at those levels, and what we saw today, gap up opening and selling coming into place. So one thing is pretty much clear, because of the gap up and selling, we have seen now the first sign of selling coming into place. But that does not mean it will start selling now for rest of the week or so, because it was entering in the bigger resistance zone. Second point, what we need to understand, this was the prior resistance when we were tracking Nifty, and it basically took some time, I would say roughly around a week, to cross this band, and then it straight away opens gap up and it zooms, right? So this basically shows when Nifty comes on the downside, it's pretty much clear, since it went up with small candles. If you see over here, it will come down fast, but this will act like a huge support for Nifty. So 10,600 and basically roughly around 10,550, I can say, will act like a huge support for Nifty. So even if Nifty climbs down, it's pretty much sure that this will be the range of support, or I can see a small bounce back happening from these levels. Now we need to understand how fast these levels will come or how slowly it can come. Now we are almost around 2nd of May, new expiry has started, Fed meeting will roll out today. Now the point here is after this, there will be some of the PSU bank results which are there, and there are good news also flowing into the market. Okay, now what we see over here, before we start entering to the Karnataka election, which is around in the next week, market will start getting a little volatile, let's say roughly around 7th or 9th. And in this range, I can say next week, we can see the levels of Nifty approaching towards 10,600 or so. So 10,600, I cannot say it can be ruled out. I would say, yes, first agenda would be it should reach to this 10,625 mark, where there is a small gap up which has happened, right? So when I see on the daily front, I'm pretty much clear it needs to come back down in this zone, and it should basically reside around 10,600 and 10,575. Now, something which is very important after this, okay, so let's annotate just to understand how we are going to basically garner or understand the entire flow, right? So first thing is pretty much clear, it will come down and trying to reach around this gap range, okay, and once it starts reaching in this gap range, we need to understand what happens after that. So let's say it reaches over here in next week, okay. So let us understand, if in next week, if it tries to reach us here because of the volatile zone, the only point which I should understand, if Karnataka election is not in BJP terms, the idea would be to open gap down and then start going straight away on the downside. Now, even on the downside, there are steps which you need to understand how fast or how or where it will go. As we have discussed prior as well, there will be two steps which will take place. One is around this 10,400 mark, and the second is around this 10,200 mark. So even if gap down opening is required below 10,550, then only you can see straight away 300 points, 400 points of the hook, right? So that's how things will pan out. Now let us understand the another scenario where it will come down to this gap zone, spend some time over here, and if Karnataka election favors them, right? So you are basically seeing an upward rally happening in place. Now what happened today was something very interesting, because going forward this will act like a huge barrier for us to understand whether Nifty will go up for sure or not, right? So when I go out and see this today's high will become a huge resistance going forward, right? Only if today's high is being breached, okay, going forward in this V-shaped rally, then only you can see Nifty heading towards 11,000, right? So today's level or today's high is immense important because it is the resistance zone, plus today's high basically saw a huge amount of selling. So that becomes my pivotal point of understanding of how Nifty will progress further, right? So two scenarios, one coming down to this gap zone, resting for some time, then Karnataka election coming into place, and all you see over here, it should open gap down and straight down to 10,400, again gap down below 10,400, going down towards 10,200, right? So that is where the selling pressure will come into place. Okay, now that is what one has to understand. And the second would be a bounce from this gap coming to the high of today, and if that breaches, then only you can see a clear uptick happening in place. Now what we need to understand over here, why I'm saying today's high. So try to understand, this was a coolest resistance zone with the gap. Today it tries to breach there and suddenly a good selling comes by, right? So if today's level, if it is taken today itself, then you will see a straight rally heading towards 10,950. So there is no stopping in Nifty towards 10,950 to 11,000. So one thing is pretty much clear. On the upside, if I try to see, there is a full upside rally without any stoppage. Okay, so this is what we need to understand. Now, will it make 52-week high? Not possible, right? So this month 52-week high is not possible. But yes, if today's high is being breached in this month, you can see the levels of 11,000 coming into place. Okay, so that is where you need to be a little cautious as to how you're trying to play the market. Second most important thing which we need to understand is the OI, or you can see basically the transfer of OI from last expiry to this expiry. So just in general, small terms, what do we understand by OI? So let us understand first, we are talking about April month. Okay, and let me say if in April month, for example, sake to understand the OI, OI was let's say 100 lakh crore or 100,000 was the OI. Okay, then you enter into May month and you need to understand that if this OI, okay, in the April month has gone up. So in April month, what has happened? Price has gone up and OI has also gone up. Okay, that basically shows many people are interested on the long side. Okay, people are creating some fresh positions for the long side. But what I see now in the May month, or I can say April to May month transfer. So that means transfer basically means people are now having position in the April month and they would want to go in the May month. Okay, now when markets keeps going up, so price went up, OI went up, and the long side was basically people were interested in the long side, but also try to understand once the price reached towards 10,600 mark, the OI did not start increasing from that point onwards. Okay, so that is more important because after that the OI did not go up. Okay, so I'm trying to say from 10,000 to 10,600 OI went up, but after this it basically remains stagnant. So that upside rally which we are trying to see after the 600, okay, the OI was not in place. So this basically means long are not getting into the market at these levels, right? So these are not the new long which are coming up at 10,600, 700 levels, because now the OI guys are now going down. Okay, it's not going down, but not been increasing. Now what I see from April to May month transfer, all transfer took place. Now all transfer took place. There are two kind of guys, people going short more aggressively, right? If there are short more into the system, okay, what will happen over here? So people are yet short and they have transferred into this month. Okay, now if people are short and they have transferred into this system or the May month, downside is limited for May month at least. Now why it is limited, try to understand. If you were short, let's say around these levels of 10,100 and 200, and the market went against you all the way along, okay, and then when the market comes down in your favor, maybe towards 400 or maybe from 700, if it comes to 400, you would try to reverse your position. Now reversing your position means you will try to buy your position. So what I'm trying to see, every fall will be bought, try to understand, okay, and this will happen not because many people are interested to buy now. So I can say every fall will be bought. So this will give support to Nifty, and people will think buy on dips. Actually, it is not buy on dips. It's basically the short people are now unwinding their position, then they are trying to go long. So that is why I'm trying to say if Nifty cracks, okay. So let's say if Nifty cracks important level called as 10,550, where it has spent large amount of time, there will be fall, but it cannot be like a super speed fall. Try to understand. That is why I say step fall. So 10,400 and then 10,200 mark. So these become crucial important points for one to understand. Okay. So that is where you need to understand all the people who were short in the month of April, okay, out here as well. They basically went on carrying their position even in the next month, right? So shorts are yet short. So try to find any of your friend or relative who were short, they would have transferred their position in the next month as well. So that basically shows they are still short on the market. And when more people are short on the market, markets do not come down. Okay, so you need some external phenomena to happen for markets to come down. But as we are trying to understand from our level, 10,550 becomes a crucial support point. And if that breaches 10,400, that breaches 10,200, right? So these were the two steps of Nifty that can happen, and that will basically happen around this 15th May because of the elections. Okay, so that is where I'm trying to understand why these rallies have happened. So if you see these three candles which have happened over here, it has not happened because people are now going long. It has happened because the people who are short, either they are buying or they're squaring off their positions. And if you try to understand, all the results were in these last 4 days. Okay, so all the big results of Reliance, HDFC Limited, all these were now, Kotak Bank, everything was over here in this last 1 week. Okay, so that is why a little bit of rally happened in the last end of the month, because the results were also in the end. So this is what one good takeaway is there. We do not see a huge downside in the market, but keeping intact are two important levels now for going ahead. First is today's high. So to be precise, today's high is around 10,784. So let's say 10,775 is the important breach mark that we should keep in mind. Because after this, there is a straight rally of 300 points, 400 points towards 11,000. So no one can stop because the fall was also fast. Second, if it goes below 10,550, there is a clear understanding there is no stopping for Nifty till 400. And then if 400 takes out, it's basically 10,200 on the cards, right? So this is where you can see Nifty headed on the downside as well. Okay, and when I try to understand even from a basic trend point of view, from the base of 10,000, it basically started going up, right? And it's almost over there at the highest point, right? There was only one point where it tried to go beyond the trend line, but again, if you see next day itself, it opened gap up and trying to go above the trend line. So till even today gap down, gap up bearish, but still it is not beyond the trend. So I cannot say the trend line has been broken. Okay, it might take still some time. As I said, one more week, and then you might find him relaxing in this particular spot. Once gap down, and then you can see a downside rally. Otherwise, you are seeing you need to set yourself for 11,000 mark. Okay, now would you go and make bull spreads at these levels? It does not make sense because things are very expensive. It's a 5-week month, so it's more pricey and more premium are required. So don't go bullish because upside is also capped at these levels. But when I see it markets coming down and relaxing in this zone of 10,600 and 550, there is a clear understanding of going bearish because once it opens gap down, I know that 10,400 and then 10,200 is there on the cards. Right, so that is how you need to plan yourself. Second, let us understand from the rally point of view. From 10,000 it went to 10,800 almost. Right, so there was an 800 points rally, and if I remove 50% of that, right, so I basically come back 400 points, which is around this zone of 10,400. Right, so 10,400 becomes a universal good benchmark for me to understand that it can come and stop around these lines. Right, so keep that in mind, that these levels can be reached, and obviously if 10,400 is broken, then only a good downside can be seen. Right, so that's important from Nifty point of view. A good stupendous rally has taken place. Obviously it can continue to reach to 11,000, but 52-week high in this month, not likely. Right, so that is not possible for this month. Yes, but the uptick is still relevant and is possible. Going across for Bank Nifty, when I see Bank Nifty again on the weekly front, something which is more interesting. What I see Bank Nifty, it has yet not entered into the resistance zone. So 25,700 and 25,800 again becomes a huge resistance on the weekly format. And what I see over here, there was multiple resistance at 25,400 and it has crossed that and it is lying above that. So the weekly opening happening above such a resistance, that shows there is some steam left towards this higher levels. But try to understand, if on the weekly format in this week, if 25,400 gets taken out, okay, there can be a huge downside happening in Bank Nifty because this is the multiple level of resistance, 25,400, where it basically opened up today and it is trying to inch higher. And if this gets breached, so it will look like gap up bearish on the weekly format below 25,400, and then there is a plain vanilla downside towards 24,400. Right, so a straight 1,000 points down on Bank Nifty is still possibility is there because now upside is capped because of huge resistance, and this is an important milestone gap up opening. But if it fills the gap, tries to go below this 25,400, then we are not seeing good sign on Bank Nifty. Obviously Bank Nifty is up because of Axis Bank and ICICI Bank, and all the worst performers are zooming up, so that will not last for a large amount of days. Now when I see on the weekly, from weekly to daily front, the same agenda seems to be relevant. I clearly can understand these are the higher resistance where Bank Nifty is headed. Most important point for me to understand, this is the gap 25,400 as I was talking about. Two things are relevant for Bank Nifty. Okay, this was the gap down level. It came back and reached here. Again there was a downside which was seen, and it again reached to 25,400. So 25,400 was huge resistance, and we have spoken prior as well. But now something which is important, it has opened up and it is trying to zoom on the higher side. But once this 25,400 is taken out on the downside, then there is no respite, because if you see the pull was fast, the fall will be faster. So straight away 24,800 is there on the cards, right? So keep this in mind. For Bank Nifty, 25,400 is a huge base support for them. So there is a narrow range of Bank Nifty also to move from 25,400 to 25,700. But if 400 is taken out, then you are seeing for a good downside rally, right? So keep that in mind for Bank Nifty as well. Now coming down to stocks, now what we need to see, let's see the stocks which are zooming today. So we are seeing Kotak Bank, Z Auto, kind of Bajaj Auto and Tata Motor coming up in trade. Now try to understand something which is very amazing. Kotak Bank results were out 3% up. I give that to him. that's fine, but it cannot keep zooming high for a long amount of time. Z result is still pending. Agreed that it is in the up zone. Bajaj Auto numbers are supposed to be out today, and more than that, it is a corrected stock, so it will also go up. Same goes for Tata Motors. What I see, Cipla, which was again beaten down, has gone up. Bajaj Finance almost range bound. Reliance is again trying to pose little bit of upside. Maruti back of the numbers, but even on the back of numbers, it is only 0.7. So what I see today, the gap of opening and the selling coming in, all the gainers are not from those of the heavyweights. So you see basically Kotak and C coming at the top, and there are some auto numbers. Because of that, market did open gap up, right? And Kotak and HDFC Limited Bank HDFC Limited results were out. So I do not see a huge upside potential because of the kind of gainers which are there in the list. When I see losers, obviously the entire IT pack is out here. HCL bad result, 3% down. Now this will bring other IT also down, right? So that is why the first time we are seeing TCS in the losing streak. Okay, so IT pack is now losing some of the steel. Tech Mahindra is also down. Commodity pack has been rolling up and down. So Vedanta is there, Tata Steel is there. Again, the SBI Bank. So banks have, that's what I'm trying to understand. ICICI, SBI, these are the banks which should go down. It has gone up, agreed, in the last expiry. But as we see in the fresh expiry, if they start going down, I don't see any respite for Bank Nifty. But we need to understand Yes Bank and Axis Bank. So Axis Bank has been posing good amount of upside, and Yes Bank. So let's understand those two guys. So Yes Bank, I agree, it should go up. The results were fantastic, and it has already shown good amount of stream. So if we go and see the daily side of Yes Bank, it's already up. It's already in that zone of the higher resistance, and then it is giving away some of the gains. Now what I see from Yes Bank also, the pull-up was fast and up. Now it is going in the range bound mode, right? So Yes Bank is done with the rally. Axis Bank is the biggest culprit for Bank Nifty because of the undue because last time when it happened, gap up, and this 10% upside basically takes Bank Nifty also to a higher zone. But what I see now in the new expiry, it is now trying to go sideways again, the way Yes Bank is trying to go. Obviously, there won't be much downside now on Axis Bank because a lot of shorts are trapped and they will come to the rescue for the buy side, right? So Axis Bank seems to be sideways. Yes Bank seems to be sideways. HDFC Bank has been going up, so showing good amount of strength. But what I see now, this was the important crucial level, 1938 or 1940, as we were talking about, below the line, below the base, but it again goes up. Today again it opens up, might come down to this zone, but only point where we need to understand for HDFC Bank has to go below this level, right? So 1940, if it retains, it can go high to touch to these levels of 1980 or so. Otherwise, it can go down only when this level of 1935 gets breached. Or to be more precise, rather than this, I can bring it little down because of the gap up opening. 1930 is the important level for HDFC Bank. So fine, HDFC Bank is finding some kind of footing. IndusInd Bank, if I try to understand what's happening on IndusInd Bank, all the way high, now it's almost going on the side zones. So again, IndusInd Bank does not seem to be now flying high anymore. All point you need to understand the range bound, right? Everything is getting into range bound fashion. No one will now make fresh 52-week high. So from the banking pack, almost all are done except for the ICICI Bank. Now ICICI Bank results are still pending. It's going on the sideways zone. The only thing that we need to understand before entering the result date of ICICI Bank, this is an important base which has formed 277 or so. If this crosses ICICI Bank, straight away down to 267 or so, right? So 10 rupee fall in ICICI Bank is clearly visible, which you need to keep in mind. Okay, so once this level is taken out, you can see straight away downward trajectory towards 267. So this will bring Bank Nifty down 24,400, right? So yes, IndusInd, Kotak, all are now going sideways, and you have ICICI Bank before the result. I'm pretty much sure it will go below these levels of 277. Okay, and if it starts flowing down, it will go straight away towards 267 or so. Okay, even on the SBI front, it was zooming up in last 3-4 trading sessions. As you see from the base, a good rally took place even in SBI, but now it is trying to fill the gap around this 242 kind of zone, and if it gets filled again, you can see downside in SBI, right? So that is another point which you need to understand from the banking side. So banks now seem to be in sideways zone, and there can be good downside happening on banks. Let's take some of the heavyweights. So let's take ITC, where the results are yet to be out. But what I see on ITC, the base effect has clearly been amazing for him. The good rally from 260 levels to 280 levels are on the cards. Now what I see on ITC is also entering into the higher resistance zone, right? So what I see on ITC front, things are pretty much clear. It is entering into the higher resistance zone. But now what I need to understand, whether it will cross past this 284 mark in this expiry seems to be very difficult, right? So even if the results are fantastic for ITC, see the kind of run up already happened towards the result. Okay, and if the results are not as per the guidelines, try to understand the rally was fast. It will come down to 274 in no time. But after this 274, try to understand the havoc ITC can create, right? If things are not good for ITC, it can break the entire Nifty. Try to understand this. 274 becomes a huge benchmark, and after this, you have straight away 268 or so. So keep a close eye on ITC as well. Results are pending, and if so, ICICI, ITC, I think are the two culprits now for Nifty, or pressure on Nifty or Bank Nifty, where you need to keep in mind, and even the SBI, right? So that is there. If you see Reliance now, so Maruti and all those have now entered into the losing streak, as I have seen in the losing segment. But even I see on the Reliance front, this was the gap up, zooming took place, and then it started going down again, right? But again, for Reliance, if you want to be bearish, it cannot be below, it can only be below 963, right? So below this only there can be a straight fall to 935. Now what I see in all these stocks, okay, if a huge level is broken, there are important crucial levels. Once it is broken, there is full blown downside rally. Try to understand. Okay, so what is going to happen on ITC? What's going to happen on Reliance? If crucial levels are broken, they are going to go down fast. And if they go down fast, I do not see any respite for Nifty, right? So Reliance and ITC seems to be in a very crucial support levels, and let's see how things pan out for them. Let's take L&T. The result, one of the good news also came in today for L&T. They sold some of their units of electricals. But the point here is, even if I see this was the gap zone where we have been speaking on L&T, any which way we were bullish, idea was pretty much clear, it will go in this particular zone, right? And that exactly happened. And this is the gap prior. So again, it is in the resistance zone. So again, L&T is also taking off the mark. Maruti is almost done. It's taking off the mark. So when we talk of the heavyweights, HDFC, and now you have HDFC Limited. So this results are also out. Okay, so when I see HDFC Limited, what's happened over here? From the base, it opened gap up. Zoom today also it opened gap up, right? So results were fantastic. It opened gap up. This was the prior resistance point. This was the gap point, and what happened in the morning? It opened gap up, zoomed up, came back down. So that clearly shows there is no more steam left in HDFC Twins as well. So only HDFC Bank, if the crucial levels are broken out, it will also give away. HDFC Limited already given away. So this is where I'm trying to understand that there is no huge upside rally now. Who will bring to the table, right? Who will push Nifty higher to make 52-week high or fresh highs or lifetime high? I don't think so, right? So it's only ITC who can now steer the entire boat where it's going to head. Okay, even if I see on the Infosys, the last rally, what I saw for last 4-5 days after the downfall, it was quick. Now, if this level again, 1180 is breached out, just see what's going to happen on Infi. Straight down to 1145, right? Now, why straight down? Because it is pretty much clear the rise was with the low candles, the fall will be even faster. So what I'm seeing now, maybe it can happen after 5 days or 10 days. But if these big stocks, they lose their steam at important levels, there is a huge downside potential which is standing. Okay, so that is why 500 points on Nifty clearing out in 3 trading sessions, I don't think it is not possible. It's clearly possible. The only point is it is just trying to make new high and trying to figure out, for people who are short, they should cover their position. So trying to scare people, that is what everyone succumbs to. And the important point, what happens over there is people who are short, they will buy, they will square off their position, and then the market comes down, right? So that's always been the normal tendency. And most important, I can see when they come down. So the important point is OI is now not going up. So people at 10,700 are not adding more position. That basically shows the upside gets limited. Okay, so that is where your OI analysis helps out. Now what I see on TCS after the breach, a good breakup on the upside, now it is being capped. Right, so there can be further more upside at least for TCS, but now IT pack seems to be rolling on the downside, because what I see today for HCL Technologies, okay, it's basically been down with opening gap down and going down. That basically clearly swings down the mood of Wipro, Tech Mahindra, HCL, and even now Infosys. Right, so this is pretty much clear. After the bad results, HCL is also down, but you need to understand now IT pack will not start performing higher. Now, the last I wanted to just show is USD INR. Something interesting, as we had spoken last time, when we see on the weekly chart, I was bullish on USD INR, devaluation will take place. And this was the point where we suggested that yes, a great uptick of 2 rupee towards these levels will happen. And this is almost over there. Now try to understand from the weekly front, the selling had taken from these levels around 67. It went down almost, went sideways, again went down. This is for the first time it is trying to inch on the higher side. Right now, USD, the interest rates are not going to be increased by Fed. Try to understand. Okay, so the dollar should not become strong, but it can still go high in this zone. So if 67 or 67.3 are the levels where USD INR tries to hit in this week, okay, this will support pharma, IT, and the export-based companies in India. Now, more prominently, you need to understand after this good upside which you have seen in USD INR, and you are seeing dollar not increasing after that because the strength of dollar will go down. So this is where you can start looking for downside in USD INR. Okay, now when I see on the daily front, let us understand whether we can get some clues from daily chart. So nothing as such. What I see just over here after the bull run, or I can say the good Maribazu, it comes back to the base of 66.5. Now this is where the important base gets created. Okay, and if this is not breached, there is no downside on USD INR. So this is the first top which has been created, comes back down. Let him make second top around the 67 mark, and then you can see a good pile down of USD INR for 1.5 rupee, right? So that is where you can see another round of selling coming into IT, because now then the USD INRs will go down, and this is where the IT pharma again will start going down also. So keep an eye on USD INR as well, but let him make another top. Okay, so two tops and then breaking the neckline. You can basically see USD INR coming back to 65.5 kind of range. So from the current level, 1.5 rupee can be shaved off from the top. So try to understand that. Not a huge big upside rally left in USD INR. Okay, so that is where I'm seeing the IT part also not playing out to be the safe bet. Okay, so that's it for today. Keep in mind the important levels. I will be seeing Bank Nifty 25,400 make or break situation. For Nifty, I am pretty much clear on the downside coming into this gap zone, which we have targeted around 10,600 to 10,550 range. Let him come back in that zone, and if it comes and resides here, this will create whether it's going heading towards 10,400 or 10,200, or it is inching again one stop higher, right? So let's see, today's high is the milestone. Try to understand, right? So today's high becomes the huge milestone now for going forward, even in our commentary, which is roughly around 10,750 to be precise. So keep that in mind. First level of top, because this second time, if it is breached, then only you can see 11,000 on the cards. Otherwise, there is no 11,000. It might come down, it might retest again, and then a swing rally on the downside can happen, right? Kind of double top and then downside. So keeping that in mind, two levels, 10,600, 10,550. On the upside, 10,780. Okay. Thank you very much, and we'll connect again tomorrow.